Chapter 5:33. Outside the mansion, Xianxia led his family's cultivator to bid farewell to Yang Kai and Qiu Yimeng. As the sun set, Xiang's second young lord's back was straight as he strode forward. He had a clear conscience. Behind him, there were less than 10 people following. When he came to Yang Kai that day, he had brought 4 boxes full of supplies and more than 20 cultivator, but after so many battles, his number had dwindled. Everyone else had died in battle, using their own flesh and blood to forge Yang Kai's glorious victories. Watching his second young lord and the Xiang family disappear, Yang Kai withdrew his gaze. Of those people, he only knew the name of Xianxia. As for the others, he hadn't even spoken a word to them, but this still couldn't erase the respect and gratitude in his heart. Not only for the Xiang family, but also for the cultivator from the other forces in the mansion. Yang Kai was very grateful to all of them. If these people hadn't gathered together, even if he was strong, he wouldn't have been able to make any waves in the inheritance war. Qiu Yimeng suddenly felt a little sad. This was the first group of cultivator to leave Yang Kai's mansion, not because of a dispute of interest, not because of a life or death grudge, but because of morality and family constraints. With Xianxia leading the Xiang family, things should be much better. Yang Kai took a deep breath. At the very least, he was more reliable than someone like Xiang Chu. If he were to inherit the Xiang family in the future, Yang Kai wouldn't mind forming an alliance with the Xiang family and turning weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk. Qiu Yimeng brushed her hair back behind her ear and chuckled. So you're right. You've done a good deed for the Xiang family. Unfortunately, the Xiang family won't appreciate it. Yang Kai laughed self-deprecatingly. Let's go back. Turning around. But before she could enter the mansion, her expression suddenly became cold, and she reached out to the side. That hand seemed to have unknowingly lengthened, and an energy invisible to the naked eye shot out like a rope. A soft cry rang out, causing Qiu Yimeng to be startled. Qiu Yimeng couldn't help frowning. Dozens of feet away, there was a person wrapped in a black robe. Her body was suspended in the air, and she was struggling. Her neck seemed to be gripped by an invisible hand, and her legs were flailing wildly. However, she couldn't escape Yang Kai's grasp. Hm? Qiu Yimeng was surprised. Just now, when this person's exclamation entered her ears, she felt a sense of familiarity, but when she couldn't see her face, she couldn't help feeling curious. Yang Kai coldly snorted. With a wave of his hand, he sent out a beam of energy that blew away the bamboo hat that covered the face of the captive. After seeing her true face, Kai Yong couldn't help but narrow his eyes, a cold light flashing across them. However, Qiu Yimeng's expression, she calmly looked at the struggling posture of the person in front of her and giggled. Why is it you? Meng Ji, Meng. Ignoring Qiu Yimeng's teasing, she glared at Yang Kai. Her face flushed red, her towering chest heaving up and down violently, sending out waves of seduction. Yang Kai frowned. He didn't want to go too far, he just felt someone approaching him without warning, so he suddenly acted. Waving his hand, Yang Kai released the woman, causing her to cry out in alarm and fall to the ground. After standing up, she glared hatefully at Yang Kai. There was a trace of hidden resentment in her eyes. She had never been treated like this before. Eldest young lady Yi. Qiu Yimeng gracefully stood beside Yang Kai, looking at Yi Xinro across from her and saying in a strange tone, Why aren't you staying in Yang Zhao's house and serving the second young lord? What are you doing here? Hearing her words, Yi Xinro's heart was filled with resentment, but she didn't show it on her face, simply smiling softly and saying, Elder sister Qiu, what are you saying? Little sister is just an ally of second young lord, how could I serve him? That's a matter for the servants, there's no need for me to intervene. Really? Qiu Yimeng looked surprised. I heard that since little sister and second young lord formed an alliance, your relationship has been getting better and better, to the point of even discussing marriage. Yi Xinro giggled, covering her mouth as she said, Elder sister must have misheard, little sister isn't someone who casually marries off. Elder sister, on the other hand, you're not young anymore, shouldn't you consider finding a good home? If elder sister is interested, little sister can speak a few words on behalf of elder sister to second young lord. Recently, second young lord has been quite depressed. If he hears this news, won't he be able to cheer up? No need. Qiu Yimeng chuckled, turning her head to look at Yang Kai. If I want to marry, I already have a candidate by my side. Xianxia was stunned. She hadn't expected Qiu Yimeng to be so bold, directly expressing her love in front of Yang Kai. After a moment of silence, she said with a look of admiration, "Elder sister is really extraordinary. Little sister is too embarrassed to say such words. Little sister's face is quite thin." Qiu Yimeng's expression was warm, and Xianxia smiled faintly. The two women's eyes met, creating a series of invisible sparks. At the entrance of the mansion, there were two guards from an unknown faction standing there. Hearing the two of them calling each other elder sister and younger sister, they were more affectionate than anyone else. Their tone was also very gentle, as if they were really harmonious sisters. However, for some reason, they still felt an illusion of swords and blades. They couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. If you have something to say, then say it. I don't have time to listen to you bickering here. Yang Kai impatiently interrupted their verbal confrontation. He had something on his mind but didn't have time to deal with it, so naturally he was a bit anxious. Why is little lord so cold? Xianxia said with some dissatisfaction, but since I've come here, I must have something to say. Yang Kai just stared straight at her without saying anything. Xianxia was stunned. You wouldn't want me to say it here, would you? What's inconvenient about that? Of course it's inconvenient. Xianxia said with a depressed expression. She had come here in secret, so if someone really saw her contacting Yang Kai here, it wouldn't be a good thing for her. After all, she was on Yang Zhao's side. Qiu Yimeng obviously also considered this point and stood on her tiptoes, whispering something into Yang Kai's ear. She was worried that if news of her meeting with Xianxia were to spread, she would be used by others. If that happened, not only would it be bad for Xianxia, but it would also be bad for Yang Kai's reputation. After listening to Qiu Yimeng's words, even though Yang Kai was somewhat reluctant, he could only say, "Then let's talk inside." As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia, wrapped in a fragrant wind, rushed into the house, and when she passed by Yang Kai, she giggled and threw him a flirtatious glance. Yang Kai's expression became strange, suddenly feeling that this Xianxia was completely different from what he had imagined. Do you think she's a pure woman? Qiu Yimeng coldly snorted. I think so, Yang Kai nodded. Whether it was Xianxia's name, appearance, or the few times he had met her, Yang Kai felt that although she was an enemy, she wasn't bad at all. Now it seemed that he had misjudged her. Be careful, don't let her eat you until there's nothing left of you, Qiu Yimeng warned with a sour tone. Am I that kind of person? Yang Kai glanced at her indifferently. Qiu Yimeng couldn't help laughing, feeling that she was overthinking things. If Yang Kai was really a perverted hooligan like Starshua, she might have to worry about being unable to resist the temptation of Xianxia, but although Yang Kai was somewhat hateful and lecherous, in the end he was still a very principled person. If she tried to seduce Yang Kai, she estimated that Yang Kai would not refuse and would eat her up, but Xianxia, she didn't have that ability. Qiu Yimeng's heart suddenly filled with pride. Walking into the house, outside the side hall, Qiu Yimeng stopped and chuckled. You can talk to her yourself. I don't get along well with her. If we meet, we'll definitely quarrel, so it's better not to see her. Yang Kai nodded lightly. He had just experienced this and knew that what Qiu Yimeng said was not false. The two of them were both young ladies from the central capital's 8 great families, so naturally, they would compete with each other, but Qiu Yimeng's fame was undoubtedly overwhelming, so Xianxia simply couldn't compare. Inside the side hall, Xianxia had already taken off her disguise and was gasping for breath, her face relaxed. It was clear that she had put in a lot of effort to dress herself up. She was beautiful to begin with, so at this moment, she gave off a radiant feeling. Her 2 snow-white arms were exposed, her skin white as snow, her chest full, not too big nor too small, just right. Her waist was graceful, her buttocks were round and perky, and her legs were long and slender. At the ankles of her 2 jade feet, there were also some bell-like ornaments, and although they didn't make any sound, they were small and lovely. Moreover, the first impression she gave off was that of a little bird, docile and delicate. However, when Yang Kai looked at her at this moment, he could see the charm hidden in her clear eyes. If you have something to say, just say it. Yang Kai said impatiently. Little Lord really is an indifferent person. Xianxia and Wuxia smiled sweetly. Then you're wrong. Yang Kai grinned wickedly. I'm not an indifferent person, I'm also interested in beautiful women, but I have something to do right now so I don't want to waste time. Is Little Lord praising me as a beautiful woman? Xianxia and Wuxia's face lit up as she bit her lip and asked. Everyone has their own preferences, in my opinion, you're a beautiful woman. Yang Kai nodded, but even if you're a beautiful woman, you can't waste my time. If that's the case, then I'll speak frankly. Xianxia and Wuxia didn't want to be entangled. She understood Yang Kai's character and knew that he was a strong person. Strong people didn't like to be led by the nose by others, so if she tried to change the subject, she was afraid the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Yang Kai put on an expression of listening attentively. In the battle 7 days ago, Second Young Lord has completely lost his will to fight. Although I am Second Young Lord's ally and should support him at this time to restore his confidence, I think that even if I try, there is nothing I can do. In other words, Second Young Lord is destined to be eliminated from the inheritance war. What do you mean? Yang Kai smiled playfully. Could it be you want to abandon my second brother and join me? Chapter 5:34. Inside the main hall, Xianxia and Wuxia blinked her big eyes and stared at Yang Kai for a moment before suddenly covering her mouth and giggling. As she laughed, she said, Little Lord is looking down on me too much. How could I possibly betray Second Young Lord and seek refuge with you? If I really did so, what kind of person would I, Xianxia and Wuxia, be? What would the world think of my Yi family then? It's just a joke, don't take it seriously. Yang Kai smiled and shook his head. He also knew that it was impossible for Xianxia and Wuxia to do such a thing. The inheritance war was hosted by the Yang family in order to select the next patriarch. Many forces in the world, large and small, were participating, most of them wanting to take this opportunity to latch onto the Yang family's thighs. However, the other 7 great families of the central capital didn't have such intentions. They had a strong heritage and powerful strength. Even if they weren't as strong as the Yang family, they weren't far behind. Moreover, they shared an inextricable connection with the Yang family in the central capital, so there was no need for them to curry favor with the Yang family. The young lords and young ladies of the 7 great families participating in the inheritance war were mainly honing themselves and honing their abilities. They didn't care much about winning or losing the inheritance war. If they won, they would be happy, but if they lost, it wouldn't be a big loss. Therefore, although the current situation in Yang Kai's house wasn't very optimistic, Xianxia and Wuxia couldn't betray him and instead seek refuge with him. Doing so would cause a great loss to her Yi family's reputation. Then what do you want to do? Yang Kai stared at Xianxia and Wuxia with burning eyes. If I'm not mistaken, you should have been waiting outside for a few days, right? It didn't make sense that she would find him so soon after he left the house. The only explanation was that this woman was waiting for him to show up. Actually, I don't want to do anything. Xianxia and Wuxia shook her head. It's just that the current situation is clear. It's only a matter of time before Little Lord wins. It can even be said that if you want, you can defeat the other 2 opponents right now. Yang Kai remained silent, but a trace of vigilance flashed across his eyes. He didn't know if this Xianxia and Wuxia was here to inquire about information. The future patriarch of the Yang family will undoubtedly be Little Lord. Xianxia and Wuxia's beautiful eyes flashed as if she could already see Yang Kai's domineering demeanor. Her breathing quickened slightly as an intoxicating blush appeared on her face. It just so happens that I'm more interested in the strong. The Little Lord is such a person. You're really boring. Yang Kai curled his lips, his face full of disdain. A cold light flashed across Xianxia and Wuxia's eyes, but she quickly restrained herself and giggled. Let's get straight to the point. This time, I only came to ask for one thing. What is it? When the little young lord becomes the head of the Yang family, please take care of my Yi family. Yang Kai's expression became strange. Squinting at Xianxia and Wuxia, Your Yi family is still one of the 8 great families. You don't need me to look after you, do you? Exn Rose slowly shook her head and said with a sad expression, Little Lord may not know, but the 8 great families are now going downhill. Many of the family's masters are nearing the end of their lives, and the strength of the new generation of young lords is mixed. Most of them are domineering and incompetent. In the last battle with the ash-gray cloud evil land, our side suffered heavy losses but was unable to eradicate the evil land. The prestige of the 8 great families was also greatly damaged. I don't know how long this kind of glory will last. I have always felt that Little Lord is a person who can bring about miracles. The entire inheritance war is a battlefield where you repeatedly create miracles. The Yang family, under your leadership in the future, is very likely to become even stronger than it is now. As for the other 7 great families, I don't think anyone has this ability. When that time comes, your Yang family may really dominate the central capital and control the world, not just in name like it is now. Yang Kai's expression changed slightly, suddenly realizing that he had underestimated this woman's ability to see far into the future. Worthy of being a descendant of the 8 great families, regardless of her character, she was still quite perceptive. Although the current 8 great families were led by the Yang family, the other 7 great families weren't weak either. Each of them wanted to replace the Yang family. Unfortunately, there was no such opportunity. However, no matter which family it was, they were all going downhill. The problem Yi Exan mentioned was something Yang Kai had occasionally thought about, but he didn't think too much about it because he felt that this kind of thing had nothing to do with him. Now that he listened to her analysis, he suddenly felt that it made sense. The 8 great families had been enjoying prosperity for far too long. The so-called riches could not last more than 3 generations, and sooner or later they would decline. Now, there were already signs of this. Each of the young lords and young ladies of the central capital thought they were superior to others, forgetting the hardships and dangers their ancestors had faced in order to create such a prosperous world. A person like Qiu Zirua might become the Qiu family's leader in the future, so what hope did the Qiu family have? Gao Rangfeng, Kang Zhan, Meng Shan Yi, Lu Qingyao, and the others all had some ability, but under their leadership, wouldn't their families decline? This was something no one could predict. Perhaps we won't be able to see this happen in our lifetime, but I'm just preparing for a rainy day. It's always better to be prepared than not, right? Exn looked at Yang Kai confidently. Yang Kai gently nodded. In any case, I feel that Little Lord isn't an ordinary person. Under your leadership, the Yang family will definitely be better off than it is now. If I don't take advantage of this opportunity to establish a good relationship with you, I'm afraid I won't have another chance in the future. Exn spoke the truth, her expression and tone not the slightest bit of falsehood. It was obvious that she really was sincere. I admit that what you said makes sense. After a moment of contemplation, Yang Kai looked up at her and grinned, but what benefits do I get from doing this? Exn bit her lip and said softly, What benefits does Little Lord want? When she said this sentence, her eyes became blurred and her face filled with a seductive light. Her meaning was self-evident. Yang Kai looked at her calmly and slowly shook his head. I don't know, it depends on what you can offer. Exn giggled, got up, and walked towards Yang Kai step by step. When she was half a foot away from Yang Kai, she stood still, turned around, and sat down on Yang Kai's lap, her arms around Yang Kai's neck as she whispered, Little Lord, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Really? Yang Kai's eyes lit up, a look of fascination appearing on his face as he stretched out his hand and pinched Exn's plump breasts. With a soft snort, Exn stared towards Yang Kai and pouted, Little Lord, be gentle, you're going to break my skin. Her lips were bright red and extremely seductive. Seeing this, a trace of pride flashed across Exn's eyes. Even if Yang Kai was outstanding in the end, he was still just an 18-year-old boy. Yang Zhao had already been reduced to a subject under her skirt, conquered by her with his body. How could Yang Kai be spared? Exn coldly snorted. Saying so, she quickly left Yang Kai's arms. Exn was an expert at playing hard to get. She knew that if she wanted to whet a man's appetite, she couldn't let him get what he wanted too easily. She wasn't a pure woman. How could she not understand what a man was thinking? Yang Kai didn't try to stop her and just stared at her with a smile, his face full of expectation. Although his eyes were lustful, there was no sign of him being aroused. Just as she stood firmly, Yi Xenro's clothes suddenly turned to shreds. Her perfectly proportioned snow-white body was suddenly exposed to the air. It was as exquisite as silk, and it flickered with an alluring luster. It was a breathtaking sight. Yi Xenro exclaimed, never having expected such a thing to happen. Suddenly, she realized that when Yang Kai had pinched her a moment ago, he had used some kind of trick, but she hadn't noticed it at all. Panicking and frightened, Yi Xenro hurriedly raised her jade arm to protect herself while covering her lower body with her other hand. Her face flushed red as she glared at Yang Kai. You! Spitting out a single word, Yi Xenro quickly suppressed her anger and stamped her foot. Little lord, how can you be like this? You delivered yourself to my doorstep. Yang Kai snorted, slightly raising his head and saying in an arrogant tone, take your hands off me. Yi Xenro suddenly wore an embarrassed expression and hesitated. Didn't you just say you could pay any price? Yang Kai sneered. What? Were you just joking? Of course I was serious. Yi Xenro's heart was filled with resentment as she bit her thin lip. She really didn't care about her relationship with Yang Kai. In fact, she even longed for it, but before she obtained any tangible benefits and Yang Kai's promise, she didn't want to let Yang Kai take advantage of her. But now, she had no choice but to do so. Hardening her heart, Yi Xenro said softly, then little lord, please don't laugh at me. Yang Kai didn't comment, still looking down at her with a somewhat superior expression. Yi Xenro slowly released her hands and lowered her head, looking very shy. Yang Kai's eyes were full of aggression, not bothering to hide it as he stared at her with a burning gaze. Her plump, flat, and smooth lower abdomen without a trace of excess fat. Her private area was covered in fragrant grass. Her snow-white body exuded an alluring light that would make any man's blood boil. She was so beautiful that it made people linger and forget to return, making them drool. Yi Xenro was completely naked, standing in front of Yang Kai like a work of art, allowing him to appreciate her exquisite curves and body. Yang Kai had to admit, this woman really did have a lot of capital, especially with her current shy appearance. It made him want to push her to the ground and savor her futile struggle. Seemingly aware of Yang Kai's gaze, Yi Xenro's pure white body gradually glowed with a strange red light and her breathing gradually quickened. Although she wasn't pure, she was still a woman. Standing in front of a man like this, she was somewhat shy. Am I beautiful? Yi Xenro allowed his eyes to wander over her body as she raised her head and asked softly. Yang Kai nodded heavily, breathing heavily. As long as you give me a promise, this is all yours. At this point, Yi Xenro could no longer play hard to get and could only throw out the bait. Moreover, looking at Yang Kai's appearance and state, it was obvious he couldn't refuse such a temptation, so she was full of confidence. Chapter 5:35. Inside the side hall, facing Yi Xenro's blatant seduction, Yang Kai stood up and walked straight towards her. Yi Xenro raised her eyes and glanced at him shyly, her heart beating violently as a faint trace of expectation appeared on her face. Towards Yang Kai, Yi Xenro was indeed quite interested in him. Being able to share the pleasures of fish and water with such a young overlord would certainly be a joyous occasion. As Yang Kai approached, Yi Xenro's breathing gradually quickened. A moment later, Yang Kai brushed past her and a low voice filled with sarcasm entered her ears. Sorry, I'm not interested in broken shoes. The expectation on Yi Xenro's face quickly converged and her charming face suddenly became gloomy, her tender body trembling as she turned her head and shouted, Yang Kai, stop right there. Yang Kai ignored her and continued to walk out. Yi Xenro was furious and quickly chased after him, but before she could get close to Yang Kai, she was blown away by an invisible wave of qi. When she landed on the ground, Yang Kai was nowhere to be seen. Yang Kai, you dare treat me like this, I'll make you die a horrible death. Yi Xenro roared hysterically like a madwoman. Outside the side hall, Qiu Yimeng stared at Yang Kai strangely, her face flushed red as she said, "Aren't you going too far? Treating a woman like this? What's too far?" Yang Kai snorted lightly. Not calling Hua Xingchen over is already the most benevolent thing she can do. I've always been kind to women. And she's yours now. Hee. Qiu Yimeng giggled, a look of expectation appearing on her face. Although with Yi Xenro's status, Qiu Yimeng couldn't do anything to her, but she could still make her suffer a little. The two women were already at odds with each other, and now Yi Xenro was brazenly seducing Yang Kai, causing Qiu Yimeng's heart to burn with anger. After Yang Kai left, Qiu Yimeng gently clapped her hands. Immediately, a few bodyguard-like cultivator rushed over, respectfully asking, "Sister Qiu Xiaoyu, what orders do you have?" Qiu Yimeng's lips curled into a devilish grin as she shouted, "Stand guard outside the hall. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter." Inside the side hall, Yi Xenro's beautiful face turned pale. She couldn't help but cry out, Elder Sister Qiu, please spare younger sister this time. Younger sister was wrong, Elder Sister Qiu." Qiu Yimeng muttered to herself, I'm getting old, my ears aren't that good. Did you hear anything?" The guards outside the side hall shook their heads solemnly. "Then I must have misheard, I thought someone was calling out to me." Qiu Yimeng giggled and walked away. The guards immediately felt a chill run down their spines. All of them suddenly discovered that Qiu Yimeng also had such a black-bellied side to her. Glancing towards the side hall, they couldn't help showing a look of sympathy. Inside, there was also a fully clothed Yi Xenro. Inside the room, Yang Kai sat cross-legged, his mood fluctuating slightly. Not because of Yi Xenro, but because of what he was about to do next. 7 days ago, when he had just broken through to the immortal ascension boundary, Yang Kai hadn't noticed, and by the time he did, there were many things he had to do, so he hadn't had time to deal with them until now. The wordless black book had reacted. With a single thought, the wordless black book made from soul calming stone appeared in Yang Kai's hand. Since obtaining this wordless black book, Yang Kai had made great strides on the road of martial Dao, his momentum unstoppable. This was partly because of the wordless black book's help each time it was unsealed, but more importantly, Yang Kai's own efforts were the result. Even now, Yang Kai still remembered it clearly. On the first page of the wordless black book, he obtained the unyielding golden skeleton. On the second page, he obtained the unyielding golden skeleton secret art. On the third page, he obtained the magical incense burner. On the fourth page, he obtained the true Yang secret art, which established his Yuan Qi secret art. On the fifth page, he was guided to Medicine King's Valley, where he obtained the peerless treasures under the myriad drug pond. At the same time, the sixth page was unsealed, opening up the wordless black book space. Until now, the wordless black book hadn't shown any signs of activity, but after breaking through to the immortal ascension boundary, Yang Kai felt that the seventh page's restrictions could now be explored. Being able to explore meant that with his current strength and cultivation he could break through its restrictions, unseal it, and unearth the secrets hidden on the seventh page. It could be said that every page of the wordless black book that was unsealed had greatly benefited Yang Kai. Now that he had reached this point, how could Yang Kai not be excited? Taking a deep breath, calming his fluctuating mood, Yang Kai held the wordless black book in his hand, opened it, and poured his Yuan Qi into it. But soon, Yang Kai discovered an unusual situation. In the past, whenever Yang Kai poured his true Qi into the wordless black book, the wordless black book would completely swallow it, and once it reached a certain point, the restrictions would be undone. However, this time, the wordless black book refused to accept Yang Kai's true Qi and instead rebounded it all back. Yang Kai fell into contemplation. Was the way he poured his Yuan Qi in was wrong? Or was the amount of Yuan Qi he poured in not enough? Or perhaps it wasn't done that way at all. The seventh page's restrictions were only discovered after he broke through to the immortal ascension boundary and opened up his knowledge sea. In other words, his knowledge sea and divine sense were the biggest keys. Considering all this, Yang Kai suddenly had an idea. No longer pouring his Yuan Qi into the wordless black book, He instead condensed his own spiritual energy and sent it towards the 7th page. The moment his spiritual energy entered the wordless black book, a faint light appeared, and at the same time, his spiritual energy was completely swallowed up. Seeing this scene, Yang Kai immediately affirmed his own inference. In order to unlock the 7th page's restrictions, he must use his spiritual energy. In for a penny, in for a pound, Yang Kai madly condensed his divine sense and continuously attacked the wordless black book. Every time his divine sense attacked, it would be completely swallowed up by the wordless black book, but Yang Kai could clearly perceive that the wordless black book's restrictions were gradually becoming weaker and weaker, like an iceberg that had been exposed to the scorching sun, slowly melting away. It was slow, but it was noticeable. Time passed, and the sun rose faintly. Yang Kai didn't know how much time had passed, but after taking several pills to replenish his spiritual energy, he finally broke through the wordless black book's restrictions. On the 7th page, a series of flickering lines appeared, crisscrossing each other, giving off a complex and mysterious aura. It seemed to be a spirit array. When all the lines on the spirit array were lit up, in the center of the page, a small vortex appeared. This vortex seemed to have the ability to swallow everything, slowly rotating. As it rotated, something emerged from the wordless black book. Yang Kai suddenly felt a sense of panic. His knowledge sea's soul seemed to be pulled by an invisible force, wanting to rush out of his knowledge sea. Kai Yang was shocked, but he quickly held his breath and stabilized his state of mind. Only then was he able to resist. If a person's soul was sucked away, they would definitely become a senseless idiot. At this moment, everyone in the mansion, including Meng Wuya and Ling Tai Su, felt a sense of unease. This feeling only lasted for a moment, coming quickly and leaving quickly, but it aroused the vigilance of the two masters. At the same time, they tried to sense the direction of Yang Kai, but there was nothing there, as if there was something blocking their divine sense. This made the two of them suspicious. They didn't know why such a situation would occur. Inside the room, Yang Kai stared at the thing that emerged from the 7th page of the wordless black book, a strange expression on his face. This thing was about the size of an egg, with two pointed ends, a round middle and flat edges. There were many lines on it, like the wrinkles of a human, like the crisscrossing gullies on the back of a 10,000-year-old turtle. At first glance, this thing looked like some kind of fruit. But no matter how Yang Kai looked at it, he felt it was more like a closed eye. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a chill in his heart, and countless goosebumps appeared all over his body. He didn't know what this thing was. In the past, when the wordless black book was unsealed, a message would spread, letting him know what benefits he had obtained, but this time it didn't. The difficulty of unsealing this wordless black book was beyond Yang Kai's expectations. Faintly, Yang Kai felt that this thing was an incredible thing, but no matter how hard he thought about it, he couldn't figure out its purpose. He could only feel that it had some kind of connection with his soul. With a thought, the thing in his hand that looked like a closed eye or a fruit disappeared. At the same time, Yang Kai noticed that there were some new traces in his knowledge sea. Immersing himself in his knowledge sea, Yang Kai examined it. Sure enough, that thing had already entered his knowledge sea and was now quietly floating above the island, transformed from the 5-colored soul-warming lotus, without the slightest sign of disharmony, as if he had already refined it. Inside his knowledge sea, in addition to that thing and the soul-warming lotus, there was also a small sword. It was the soul-type artifact he had used to kill Nansheng. In order to refine this small sword, Yang Kai had spent a lot of effort, but that unknown thing had actually entered his knowledge sea on its own. Shaking his head, Yang Kai couldn't understand the deeper meaning behind this. Hearing a sound in his ear, Yang Kai quickly withdrew from his knowledge sea. The door opened and outside, Ling Tai Su and Meng Wuya walked in with dignified expressions. Both of them stared at Yang Kai for a moment before using their huge divine senses to sweep him, but after failing to find anything, the two of them exchanged a puzzled glance before walking out without saying a word. "Young master, are you all right?" Immediately after, the old demon also poked his head out and asked. "I'm fine." Yang Kai shook his head, knowing that these people were worried about him. His heart couldn't help feeling warm. "It's good that you're fine." The old demon breathed a sigh of relief and retracted his head. Wait! Yang Kai suddenly called out. What other orders does young master have? Go call Lung Shan over. Yes. A moment later, Lung Shan of Ghost King Valley was led into the room by the old demon. Looking at Yang Kai curiously, Lung Shan asked, What's the matter? Yang Kai didn't get up and simply motioned to her. Lung Shan froze for a moment, not understanding Yang Kai's intentions. Chapter 5:36. I said, when I break through to the immortal ascension boundary one day, I will give you back your freedom. Looking at the suspicious look on Lung Shan's face, Yang Kai chuckled and said, Now, it's time to fulfill this promise. Lung Shan's eyes lit up, her eyes suddenly filled with expectation. A few years ago, when she was in that isolated world, she and Tianlang Dynasty ZMO had been implanted with a soul brand by Yang Kai. At the beginning, Lung Shan and ZMO had tried every possible means to escape from Yang Kai's control, but after going through trials and tribulations together, Lung Shan gradually changed her opinion and attitude towards Yang Kai. Later, in the evil cavern, Yang Kai had single-handedly saved 7 or 8 Ghost King Valley disciples, causing Lung Shan to shed tears of gratitude. During the Inheritance War, when the Ghost King Valley disciples had come to help, Lung Shan had only wanted to return the favor and thank Yang Kai for his kindness to them. She no longer cared about the soul brand that Yang Kai had planted in her sea. It didn't matter whether it was removed or not. After all, it was impossible for Yang Kai to harm her and use that brand to order her to do things she didn't like. Although she didn't care, when she heard Yang Kai say so, Lung Shan was still a little happy. This man was a man who kept his promises. Nodding gently to Yang Kai, Lung Shan walked over to him and sat down cross-legged. Relax. Yang Kai chuckled, seeing that she was a little nervous. The next moment, a huge amount of pure divine sense condensed and rushed directly into Lung Shan's mind. Lung Shan had now broken through to the Yuan Qi boundary 9th stage, and although she hadn't yet reached the immortal ascension boundary or opened her knowledge sea, as a living being, her soul was innate. After his divine sense swept through Lung Shan's mind, Yang Kai immediately found a wisp of energy that was exactly the same as his own aura. It was the soul brand that had been implanted in Lung Shan's body for several years. Yang Kai carefully pulled the brand, using his own origin aura to attract it and make it return. For Yang Kai, who had already broken through to the immortal ascension boundary, this wasn't a difficult task at all. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Yang Kai withdrew his divine sense and said with a smile, It's done. Lung Shan slowly opened her eyes, staring at Yang Kai in a daze, her mood incomparably subtle. Regaining her freedom was a joyous occasion worthy of celebration, but Lung Shan kept feeling as if she was suddenly missing something, which made her feel a little uncomfortable. Thank you. Lung Shan stood up and thanked him softly. From then on, she no longer had any contact with Yang Kai. After the end of the Inheritance War, she may take her disciples back to Ghost King Valley and never set foot in the central capital or War City again. Of course. Yang Kai nodded. Lung Shan smiled silently, turned around, and walked out. Outside, the old demon grinned meaningfully and said, Young Lady Lung, congratulations. But unexpectedly, Lung Shan actually glared at him, causing the old demon to suddenly feel confused, wondering what he had done to offend her. Old demon, come in. Yang Kai's voice called out from inside the room. The old demon quickly walked in, bowed, and asked, What other instructions does young master have? Sit down. Ah. The old demon was startled, suddenly realizing what Yang Kai was going to do. His face flushed with excitement as he stared at him and muttered, Young master, if I tell you to sit, then sit, don't talk nonsense. The old demon quickly sat down in front of Yang Kai, his expression solemn, nervous, and expectant. Release your knowledge sea's defenses. Yang Kai said lightly. The old demon quickly did as he was told. In the next moment, Yang Kai's divine sense invaded the old demon's knowledge sea, searching for a soul thread that belonged to him. A moment later, Yang Kai and the old demon opened their eyes at the same time, the former with a strange expression and the latter with a look of embarrassment. Heh. Yang Kai looked at the old demon with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I seem to have seen something incredible. Just now, when he invaded the old demon's knowledge sea, all he saw was a blood-red color. The old demon's knowledge sea was formed from blood and was filled with an incomparable evil qi and demonic qi. Even with Yang Kai's current strength, he still felt a little uneasy inside. While shuttling through the blood-red knowledge sea, Yang Kai faintly saw some of the old demon's distracting thoughts, including his previous thoughts of harming him. However, they were both men after all, so Yang Kai didn't dare to pry too much, otherwise it would be too disgusting. So after finding his own soul thread, he hurriedly withdrew. The old demon was embarrassed to death. Young master, please calm your anger. Those were old servant's thoughts a long time ago. Now, old servant is loyal to young master. Heaven and earth can testify to this. Enough. Yang Kai stood up. You don't need to show your loyalty to me. If I didn't trust you, I wouldn't have let you go free. Young master is wise. The old demon was moved. From now on, old servant will still serve young master, without any disloyalty. Yang Kai nodded lightly and said no more. The old demon didn't show any intention of leaving immediately, rubbing his big hands as if he had something to say. Yang Kai turned his head and looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Young master, old servant must apologize to you, the old demon chuckled awkwardly. If you're referring to your previous thoughts, there's no need to say anything. No, the old demon shook his head, it's about your methods of controlling others. That's your method? Yes, it's old servant's method. The old demon nodded repeatedly, whether it was himself, Ling Shan or ZMO. It was the old demon's doing that allowed Yang Kai to control the three of them. During this process, Yang Kai was only responsible for providing his own soul thread and reaping the fruits of others' labor. The old demon did all the work. At that time, Yang Kai's strength was still relatively low, so he couldn't use his spiritual energy to plant a brand in others' minds. How should I describe old servant's method? There are advantages and disadvantages. Old demon quietly glanced over at Yang Kai, but seeing him remain silent, he couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat, continuing, the good side of this is that it's much more convenient. Young master has probably already experienced this. With old servant's help, all you need to do is release a thread of your soul to easily control others. And the disadvantage? Yang Kai felt that this was the main point. He had never heard the old demon mention this before. The old demon awkwardly scratched his head for a long time before saying, the disadvantage is that if one is damaged, everyone is damaged. Speak clearly, Yang Kai frowned. If the controlled person's soul is destroyed, young master may also be injured. The old demon gritted his teeth and explained. Yang Kai was stunned for a moment before he understood, because my soul thread is still in someone else's mind, right? Exactly, but fortunately, whether it's old servant or Miss Ling Shan, both of us have been safe these past few days. The old demon wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and whispered, but, it seems, there is also a little girl called ZMO. Yang Kai grinned, knowing what the old demon wanted to say. If young master is still worried, old servant will immediately go to Tianlang dynasty and bring her here, the old demon quickly said. Do you have such ability? Yang Kai glared at him. Although Tianlang dynasty's territory was not as vast as the great Han dynasties, it was still a place where cultivators gathered. Sen Luo Temple, where ZMO was located, was a super force in Tianlang dynasty with an above immortal ascension boundary master presiding over it. Even if the old demon was powerful, he couldn't snatch someone from Sen Luo Temple. The reason he hadn't told him this before was probably because he wanted to use it to bring him down. Yang Kai understood and didn't pursue the matter further. The fact that old demon was willing to tell him this already showed his sincerity and loyalty. Moreover, in Yang Kai's opinion, this wasn't a big deal. As long as ZMO didn't die, he wouldn't be harmed. When I have time in the future, I'll make a trip there, Yang Kai sighed. Yes, young master. The old demon looked guilty and could only nod. His divine sense thread being planted in someone else's mind wasn't a good idea. Yang Kai could only wait until the inheritance war was over and see if he had free time to find ZMO. Thinking of that bold woman, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling strange. In that isolated world, she had almost been plucked by him, young and inexperienced. Yang Kai shook his head again and again. 2 days later, early in the morning, a group of uninvited guests arrived at Yang Kai's house. The guard outside the house hurriedly reported, and when Yang Kai rushed to the main hall, he found that Elder Yang Zhen of the Yang family elder hall had actually arrived in person and was sitting at the head of the table. Along with him were a number of people Yang Kai had never seen before, all of them possessing extraordinary strength, at least at the Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage. There were about 4 or 5 people in total. Frowning, Yang Kai stepped forward and saluted, "Greetings, Elder." Yang Zhen nodded lightly, his expression solemn. "Elder, these are?" Yang Kai looked at the other people and asked. "They are all elders of my Yang family." Yang Zhen explained. The members of the Yang family elder hall weren't just the few old men Yang Kai had seen before. These people had worked hard and made great contributions to the Yang family. As they grew older, they had been arranged to sit in the elder hall, and in addition to dealing with some chores, they spent the rest of their lives enjoying themselves. There was another group of elders who really managed the affairs of the Yang family. These people were the ones who held the most power in the Yang family. Just like the people in front of him. Yang Kai nodded slightly and greeted them one by one. Those people all had lofty expressions on their faces and did not respond. Yang Kai didn't care. Most of the Yang family's elders were like this. Not only the Yang family, but the 8 great families were also like this. "May I ask why Elder has come to my house this time?" Yang Kai asked in a deep voice, a bad premonition in his heart. Last time, because of the Blood Warrior issue, Yang Kai had been summoned back by the family, but this time, several elders had come in person. Obviously, the problem was more serious than last time, otherwise, it wouldn't be like this. "You already know the answer." Yang Zhen coldly snorted and shouted majestically, "In front of tens of thousands of people in War City, you killed the heirs of the Nan family and Xiang family. Do you really think you're some kind of character? Just because of this?" Yang Kai stared at Yang Zhen in amazement, chuckling lightly. "Aren't elders making too much of a fuss over nothing?" "Making too much of a fuss over nothing?" A man in a blue robe on the left suddenly shouted coldly. "Those were the heirs of 2 first-class families, not some random cat or dog you could kill." Chapter 537. To me, they're no different from cats and dogs. Yang Kai turned to look at the man who spoke, a sneer on his face. "Arrogant." The man coldly snorted, the others also slowly shaking their heads, disappointment filling their faces. They had been in the central capital all this time, but they had also been paying attention to the situation in War City every day. From Yang Kai's performance in the past, these people had regarded him as a reliable candidate to inherit the position of patriarch. But now that they had met him, they suddenly discovered that he was actually a little brat who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. It was inevitable that they would feel disappointed. Although the Yang family was arrogant and domineering, they wouldn't do anything that would provoke public anger. Yang Kai killing the heirs of 2 first-class families in the inheritance war was undoubtedly a violation of this taboo. As a result, when the Yang family hosted the inheritance war in the future, which family would dare send someone to participate? It was precisely because the young lords and young ladies of great families participating in the inheritance war that there was no danger to their lives and they could hone themselves as well as have investment value. So every time the inheritance war was held, countless forces would rush to participate. Now that Yang Kai had done this, if the Yang family didn't give the world an explanation, no one would dare to participate in the inheritance war in the future. Relying on your status as a Yang family direct descendant, you dared to kill the heirs of other families. Your approach has made the family very disappointed and passive. A middle-aged woman who looked to be in her 40s or 50s stared coldly at Yang Kai and said in a hoarse voice. She wasn't ugly, and although she was a middle-aged woman, she was still quite charming, but her voice, for some reason, made those who heard it feel particularly uncomfortable. Even if I'm not a Yang family direct descendant. If those 2 had provoked me, they would have died. Yang Kai's eyes flashed a cold light. The several elders kept shaking their heads, the middle-aged woman saying, "It seems that you can't be reasoned with at all. Elder Zhen, you speak." Yang Zhen nodded gently and said, "Yang Kai, you really went too far this time. You're young and impetuous, I understand. This old master also had such an experience, so I'm not going to criticize you, but as a man, you must be responsible for what you've done." "How do you want me to take responsibility?" Yang Kai laughed. "Don't tell me those two families want me to pay with my life?" Yang Zhen nodded lightly. The people from the Nan family and Xiang family arrived in the central capital a few days ago and entered the Yang family's residence. "What's the family's opinion?" Yang Kai's lips curled into a playful smile. "Naturally, the family will not agree to such a rude request." Yang Zhen coldly snorted, "They don't even know their own weight, actually wanting my Yang family's young lords to pay with their lives. What a joke." Yang Kai was expressionless. His family did not reject their request to protect him. It was about the honor of the family. How could Yang Kai not know this? If it wasn't him, but another Yang family junior who committed such a crime, the Yang family would also protect him. Therefore, Yang Kai had no intention of thanking him. However, this matter still has to be dealt with, otherwise the Yang family won't be able to maintain a foothold in the outside world. Yang Zhen quickly said, "The family orders you to apologize to those two families." "Apologize?" Yang Kai narrowed his eyes. "Not bad. What if I refuse?" "This is the family's order." The man in blue shouted in a deep voice, "You dare refuse? So what if it's the family's order?" Yang Kai cast a sidelong glance at him. "You're rebelling." The man sneered again and again, "I've long heard that you're arrogant and unruly, but I didn't expect you to be even worse than the rumors. We've already given you enough face by specially coming here today, so don't play with fire." While speaking, his aura suddenly spread out as he glared at Yang Kai. In the next moment, countless divine senses and powerful auras attacked from all directions. The entire side hall was enveloped. Asterisk walala. Asterisk, the side hall shook, and a lot of mud and sand fell from the roof. The aura emitted by the man in blue was instantly shattered under these divine senses and pressure like spring snow under the scorching sun. The several elders' faces paled. They seemed to suddenly remember that Yang Kai had gathered many powerful cultivators in his house. Using force to demonstrate their strength here was a bit like showing off one's slight skill in front of an expert. "All of you, back down." Yang Kai shouted angrily. The terrifying pressure dissipated in an instant, and the divine senses were all withdrawn. The man in blue couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat as he looked at Yang Kai with a complicated expression. He was an elder of the Yang family and held great power in his hands. His status could almost be described as second only to one person and above tens of thousands. He thought that coming to Yang Kai's house to deliver his orders would be an easy task, but now it seemed that it was a very dangerous thing. The prestige of this boy in front of him in the hearts of the masters in the house seemed to have reached a level that no one could match. No wonder the patriarch ordered several elders to come together. Originally, he thought it was a bit of a fuss, but now it seemed that the patriarch was far-sighted. If he had come alone to deliver the order, this boy might not have paid attention to him. "How should I address you, elder?" Yang Kai stared at him and asked. "Wei Qing." Unconsciously, the elder followed up with Yang Kai's words, but after regaining his composure, his face suddenly flushed red. The other elders couldn't help rolling their eyes, their evaluation of Wei Qing greatly reduced. "Elder Wei." Yang Kai's eyes flashed a trace of disdain as he coldly said, "Please don't show your subtle strength in my house. The people in my house are all dangerous, you know that." Wei Qing's expression kept changing, a particularly interesting one. "Enough." Yang Zhen shouted angrily as he stared coldly at Yang Kai. "Although Elder Wei is not from my Yang family, he has made many great contributions over the years, otherwise he would not have been able to sit in the position of elder. It is not up to you to slander and despise him. Slandering and despising him is tantamount to slandering and despising the elder hall. Can you bear this responsibility?" Yang Kai no longer spoke, his expression indifferent. "Let's get to the point," the woman hurriedly reminded. Originally, on the way here, everyone had already discussed how to put pressure on Yang Kai. Some people were playing the role of the good cop. Others were playing the role of the bad cop, so with several elders acting at the same time, how could they not achieve their intended goal? She hadn't expected that after 2 or 3 sentences, Kai Yang would change the topic to another direction. If this continued, it would be difficult to wrap things up. This little brat really knows how to lead others by the nose. The woman couldn't help glancing over at Yang Kai with some interest, but his attitude was really irritating. No wonder Wei Qing couldn't hold back. As a young family disciple, he actually dared to ignore the family's orders. Daring to contradict an elder of the family, was he still a young family disciple? Yes, let's get to the point. Yang Zhen was also shocked and immediately became vigilant, calmly saying, "Let's not talk about the Xiang and Nen families first. Yang Kai, let me ask you, is there a powerful demon lord in your house? Is he from the ash-gray cloud evil land?" "No, that's not it. I've already informed that supreme elder of the God Conferment Hall." Yang Zhen nodded. "I naturally know this. We have also sent people to the ash-gray cloud evil land to inquire about this matter, although from the information we received, it seems that he is not a true demon lord. You say he is not from the ash-gray cloud evil land, but information can be falsified and cannot be taken seriously. If you say he is not from the ash-gray cloud evil land, where does he come from?" "I don't know." Yang Kai shook his head. Wei Qing no longer said anything, but another man in yellow robes coldly snorted, "You don't know, yet you still accepted him? I heard that you and he have a master-servant relationship." "I don't like to pry into others' secrets. Everyone has secrets in their heart. Do you think Elder doesn't? If I were to ask you now, would you be willing to tell me everything about yourself?" "Impudence!" The man roared angrily. He slapped his chair angrily. Yang Zhen stretched out his hand and gestured. He could see that none of these elders were Yang Kai's opponent in a verbal confrontation. As long as this little brat said 1 or 2 words, he would be able to cause these Yang family elders to lose their composure. "Let's not talk about this for the time being. Yang Kai, are you really from High Heaven Pavilion?" "Yes." Yang Kai's brow furrowed. Now he realized what Yang Zhen wanted to do. "The remnants of High Heaven Pavilion, cough. Are those people in your house now?" "Yes." High Heaven Pavilion is an evil sect, and there are so many evil sect members gathered in your house, including some from Ghost King Valley, but I won't mention them for the time being. Let me ask you again. Have you ever cultivated an evil secret art?" As he finished speaking, Yang Zhen's eyes gradually became dangerous as he stared at Yang Kai aggressively. Yang Kai's mouth curled into a smile as he playfully asked, "If I said I had never cultivated an evil secret art, would elders believe me?" All the elders slowly shook their heads. Less than 10 days ago, when Yang Kai broke through to the immortal ascension boundary, the evil energy that burst out from his body had spread throughout War City, causing countless people to tremble in fear. Everyone believed that Yang Kai had cultivated an evil secret art, so even if he denied it now, it would have no effect. Then I don't need to answer. They had already determined that he cultivated an evil secret art, so saying anything more would only be a waste of saliva. I'll take it as your acquiescence. Yang Zhen took a deep breath, his expression somewhat gloomy as he said, "Yang Kai, to be honest, in the inheritance war, this old master wasn't very optimistic about you at first because the strength you showed was too little, but you have repeatedly created inspiring miracles. This old master is more and more convinced that the next patriarch of the Yang family should be inherited by you. The Yang family is huge, but it is also bloated. Only in the hands of outstanding people can it go further, and you are such a person. Elder's praise is too high." Yang Kai nodded slightly. "But now, this old master has to ask." Yang Zhen took a deep breath and asked, "Yang Kai, what exactly do you want to do?" Yang Kai looked at him calmly, not saying a word. Yang Zhen stood up and walked towards Yang Kai step by step, saying, "You took in a disciple of High Heaven Pavilion, have a close relationship with Ghost King Valley, and have an unknown demon servant by your side. You cultivate an evil secret art that nearly caused you to become the demon race, but you still remain stubborn. A few days ago, you just broke through, but now you've already reached the Immortal Ascension Boundary second stage. Your evil secret art is truly amazing. Yang Kai, tell this old master, what exactly are you trying to do? Do you want to turn the central capital upside down and overthrow the 8 great families? Yang Zhen walked over step by step, counting one by one, and when he arrived in front of Yang Kai, his eyes flashed like a hawk's as he stared at him. Chapter 5:38. Turning the central capital upside down, turning the 8 great families upside down. Yang Kai had never considered this. Although he didn't have much of a sense of belonging to the family and had participated in the inheritance war simply because he wanted to restore the sect's reputation, he hadn't thought to rebel to such an extent. Listening to Yang Zhen's harsh questioning, Yang Kai quickly realized something. Does the family think of me like this? Yang Kai stared at Yang Zhen in front of him and asked in a deep voice. Yang Zhen's face filled with grief as he shook his head. Don't blame the family for thinking too highly of you. It's your performance these past few years that made the family think in such a way. It's undeniable that you are indeed a good seedling, but if such a good seedling were to become an evil monster, the family wouldn't mind purging you to maintain the family's purity. After a pause, Yang Zhen sighed again. If it's just the family's concern, it's easy to discuss. At worst, we can ask the family's elders to use their secret arts to help you resolve the demonic qi in your body. However, do you know that it's not just my Yang family that's worried about this? Yang Kai's expression became cold. I might as well tell you directly, after you broke through, the 7 great families all sent people to contact the Yang family. They are all very worried that you will become like the Demon Lord. Yang Zhen sighed deeply. Learning from the past is a good lesson for the future. The sect you came from is High Heaven Pavilion. You cultivate an evil secret art. Your aptitude defies the heavens. But before that, High Heaven Pavilion produced a demon lord. That demon lord is still roaming the ash-gray cloud evil land. His strength is unfathomable and his secret arts are profound. In this world, no above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master is his opponent. You and the Demon Lord come from the same source, so your relationship with him is that of martial uncle and martial nephew. A single Demon Lord is enough to make the 8 great families somewhat helpless, if a second one appears. Yang Zhen slowly shook his head, a deep sense of dread filling his face as he stared at Yang Kai. With all these factors combined, how could they not be worried? Worried that I will become a second Demon Lord? Yang Kai's expression became cold. Yes, and your aptitude is even greater than that so-called evil lord. If you really reach that step, Yang Zhen smiled bitterly, his eyes filled with confusion. If things really came to that point, with 2 demon lords descending upon the central capital, how could the 8 great families resist? The other elders present were also filled with dread and fear, as if they could already see the central capital being destroyed and the earth groaning. At the end of the day, this is merely your own conjecture. Yang Kai suddenly lost interest in defending himself as he calmly replied. The members of the 8 great families were all inflexible and stubborn, living high and mighty all year round, making them think that they were always right. No matter what he said, he would never be able to change their views and suspicions. Even if they could change the minds of the 1 to 2 teams, it would not affect the overall situation. Prevention is better than cure. This is how the 8 great families have been able to stand in the central capital for so many years without falling. Yang Zhen said frankly, the 8 great families must guard against you. My path, I will walk it myself. Yang Kai's lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Back then, my innate talent was lacking and I had no strength to even trust a chicken, let alone cultivate. My father wanted me to enter the Yang family's dragon transformation pond, hoping that its miraculous effects would be able to cleanse my body, but even after so many years of hard work and submitting so many applications to the Elder Hall, none of them were accepted. Even if he had made enough contributions to the family, the Elder Hall only gave my father one response, a waste, not qualified to waste the efficacy of the dragon transformation pond. Yang Zhen's expression suddenly became awkward. He was the one who had rejected the application submitted by the fourth Master Yang, so now that Yang Kai had brought it up again, he naturally felt a little embarrassed. Now, with my current achievements in cultivation, the family actually wants to point fingers at me. Elder Zhen, don't you think it's ridiculous? Yang Zhen's face went pale, too embarrassed to answer. Yang Kai continued, a few days ago, when I broke through to the immortal ascension boundary, if not for the help of my friends and elders, I would have been crippled by the Grand Elder on the spot. Even if I didn't die, I'm afraid I would have been reduced to an ordinary elder. Does the family want to prevent me from entering the immortal ascension boundary? Elder, don't you think the family has gone too far? Impudence. Yang Zhen couldn't help becoming angry. The family is supreme. For the sake of the family, what does it matter if you sacrifice yourself? Elder's sense of righteousness and noble character is something this disciple cannot compare to. This disciple is a relatively selfish person. Yang Kai suddenly took a step forward, his eyes filled with murderous intent as he coldly declared, since this is the case, this disciple will fulfill the wishes of several elders. After killing several elders, this disciple will ask for forgiveness from the family and allow the family to deal with him. This way, all of you will be sacrificing yourselves for the family. Everyone present suddenly stood up and stared at Yang Kai in horror, secretly condensing their strength. Yang Kai laughed loudly. The elders seemed to be quite selfish. The elders couldn't help blushing, feeling ashamed of their performance just now. It was easy to say these words, but when it came to doing them, they found that they were not as simple as they seemed. Let's get down to business. Get down to business. The woman with the hoarse voice quickly changed the subject. Yang Zhen stared at Yang Kai and smiled bitterly, shaking his head. Dealing with you is very tiring. This old master won't beat around the bush. Asking you to apologize to the Xiang and Nen families is just a pretense. My Yang family's young lords have never bowed to anyone before. Even if you want to do this, the family will not agree and will even try to stop you. Then what does the family want me to do? When we return to the central capital, several of the family's grand elders will work together to dispel the demonic qi in your body. From now on, you will no longer have to worry about falling into the devil's path. The family and the 7 great families will no longer guard against you. Yang Kai remained silent. He didn't think that the grand elders would be able to expel the demonic qi from his unyielding golden skeleton. If he didn't use this demonic qi, no one would be able to detect it. Moreover, this demonic qi wasn't harmful to him at all, so Yang Kai didn't feel the need to expel it. You can continue with the inheritance war, but the Yang family's future patriarch position cannot be inherited by you. The patriarch said that after this inheritance war is over, he will come forward to rectify High Heaven Pavilion's name. I hope you can understand the family's painstaking efforts. The family was already wary of Yang Kai, so naturally they wouldn't allow him to sit on the patriarch's seat. If one day Yang Kai were to become the demon lord, wouldn't the Yang family lose all face? Don't be in such a hurry to refuse. The family has another reason for doing this. Yang Zhen took a deep breath. What reason? It's related to the secret of your cultivator's rapid increase in strength. Yang Zhen said in a low voice as he stared towards Yang Kai. The breathing of the other elders also quickened a lot. Do you think you can hide it from us? Yang Zhen smiled. Although no one knows why your cultivator's strength can increase so quickly, everyone knows it has something to do with you. The Blood Warrior Hall's disciples actually breaking through to the Immortal Ascension Boundary 9th stage one after another. This phenomenon is too unusual and has attracted a lot of attention. In addition, there's also your parents. A cold light flashed across the depths of Yang Kai's eyes. Yang Yingfeng has a chronic illness and his strength has been stuck at the Immortal Ascension Boundary 3rd stage for many years, but now, he's already an Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage cultivator, and all of this happened after you returned to the central capital. In less than a year, his strength has increased so rapidly. Do you dare say it has nothing to do with you? Although the growth of Dong Suju's strength is not as terrifying as Yang Yingfeng's, it is still many times faster than before. Do you really think our Yang family is blind? Yang Kai remained indifferent. Before giving his parents the myriad drug liquid and myriad drug liquid, he had already considered this issue, but he had still given it to them because they were his own parents. What you cultivate is an evil technique. It's a quick way to increase your strength. We can understand that. But what method did you use to make those who follow you, including those who are close to you, increase their strength so quickly? This is not something we can understand. My Yang family cares about this, but so do the other 7 families. Yang Zhen said thoughtfully, why else do you think those 7 families would join forces to put pressure on my Yang family to deal with you? You only have the potential to become a demon lord, your strength isn't too high, they aren't idle enough to target you. The central capital's 8 great families had a keen sense of smell. When they made a move, it meant there were benefits to be had. As for the myriad drug liquid, it was what attracted all of them. What family wouldn't be jealous of a method that could rapidly improve a cultivator's strength? Letting you return to the central capital is also the family's consideration. Only when you return to the Yang family, under the protection of the family's masters, can you sit back and relax. What the family wants most is that secret, right? I won't deny that. Yang Zhen nodded calmly, but this time, the family has done its utmost, because we came to find you, not to send you a letter to return. The difference between these 2 approaches, you should understand. Yang Kai nodded gently. They had come to find him and told him all this, obviously hoping he would cooperate and obediently return to the Yang family to hide, offering up the secret and bringing good news to the family. If they sent him a letter to return and directly used force to suppress him and imprison him, it would be absolutely impossible for him to compromise. At that time, it would only be a matter of life and death. The Yang family was also aware of Yang Kai's temperament, so naturally they hoped to resolve this matter peacefully. Think about it clearly. Yang Zhen finished and no longer said anything, waiting quietly. Yang Kai shook his head. Since I know this, it's even more impossible for me to return to the central capital. The family wanting the myriad drug liquid didn't matter, there was so much of it, Yang Kai could just casually take out some. Although he didn't have much of a sense of belonging to the Yang family, it was the Yang family who provided him with a stage to display his talents in the inheritance war, so giving the family some myriad drug liquid would be considered a thank you gift. However, after returning to the central capital's Yang family, he was afraid he would never be able to leave again, and his strength would certainly be crippled. This was a consequence Yang Kai couldn't accept. Chapter 539. After listening to Yang Kai's answer, Yang Zhen didn't take it seriously, as if he had already expected it, simply nodding gently. Since this is your choice, this old master won't say anything more. Take care of yourself, but this old master must remind you that since the 7 great families have smelled something fishy, it is impossible for them to give up. My Yang family will not break off relations with the other 7 families because of you. If you don't return to the family and accept its protection, you cannot be content. After saying that, Yang Zhen stood up and left with the other elders. Before leaving, the woman glanced back at Yang Kai and whispered, "You should think about it again, there is no harm in doing so. Even if your strength is crippled, you can still live in the Yang family. The family is willing to meet all your needs." Yang Kai stared at her coldly, his eyes flashing a cold light. The woman slowly shook her head and no longer said anything, quickly following the others and leaving. After they left, Yang Kai let out a light breath, a trace of exhaustion appearing on his face. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring will arouse the envy of others. This was the best way to describe the myriad drug liquid. This was why he had always kept the myriad drug liquid a secret, and besides a few of his most trusted people who knew about its existence, he had never told anyone else. However, the 8 great families had seen through some suspicious points, and this was not something Yang Kai could stop. After all, he couldn't just say that he had such a good thing and didn't even care about his parents, right? The rapid improvement of the strength of the people in his house was also due to Xia Ningchang using the myriad drug liquid in alchemy. The medicinal efficacies of the myriad drug liquid seeped into the pills and stimulated their functions, imperceptibly helping them cleanse their bodies and optimize their aptitude. However, the speed of their strength improvement was relatively slow. After all, they hadn't taken the myriad drug liquid directly. Judging from the tyrannical strength of the 8 great families and the degree to which they coveted the myriad drug liquid, this time's matter was very tricky and was very likely to develop into a very bad situation. Walking out of the side hall, Yang Kai ran into a panicked Qiu Yimeng. Yang Kai had rarely seen Qiu Yimeng show such a helpless expression. The Qiu family's first young lady had always been calm and composed, so even if she encountered a dangerous situation, she would never lose her composure. But now, her anxiety and fear were written all over her face. As long as one wasn't blind, anyone could see it. Yang Kai. Qiu Yimeng called out softly, her voice trembling slightly. Yang Kai's expression was calm as he looked straight at her. What happened? My father sent a message to me, telling me to return to the family as soon as possible. Qiu Yimeng hurriedly replied. You're so fast. Yang Kai smiled, but his eyes were as cold as a blade. As soon as Yang Zhen left, the Qiu family sent a message to Qiu Yimeng asking her to quickly return to the central capital. Sure enough, the 8 great families were all grasshoppers on the same rope. What do you mean? Qiu Yimeng looked at Yang Kai suspiciously. When she received the message just now, Qiu Yimeng didn't know what had happened, but she panicked and hurried over to see Yang Kai, only to hear him say such inexplicable words, causing her heart to become even more uneasy. Nothing. Yang Kai adjusted his expression and asked with a smile, when do you plan to leave? I'm leaving soon. Qiu Yimeng bit her red lips. Also, father sent a message telling me to take the people from the Autumn Rain Hall back with me. The Autumn Rain Hall was the only group of people Qiu Yimeng had brought with her when she moved into Yang Kai's house. I know. Qiu Yimeng gently shook her head, her expression pained. I don't know why, but I always feel uneasy, as if something big is about to happen. Also, if I leave here, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back. Qiu Shoucheng asking Qiu Yimeng to take the people from the Autumn Rain Hall back with her explained a lot. Qiu Yimeng wasn't a fool, on the contrary, she was quite shrewd, so how could she not smell the mystery in this situation? However, she didn't understand why all of this was happening. She had come to help Yang Kai participate in the inheritance war, temporarily leaving the family, not representing the Qiu family, but herself. The Qiu family's true ally was the Yang family's 6th brother, Yang Shun. The inheritance war was still not over, so it didn't make sense for the Qiu family to suddenly call her back. You think too much. Yang Kai grinned at her. Qiu Yimeng nervously grabbed Yang Kai's arm and looked at him with a pleading look, whispering, Do you know something? Yang Kai shook his head. How could I know about your Qiu family's matters? Is it related to the people from the Yang family elder hall? Qiu Yimeng asked. The Qiu family's first young lady's insight was as amazing as ever. Yang Kai still shook his head. It's probably because Uncle Qiu hasn't seen you for so long and misses you, so he summoned you back to see him. Qiu Yimeng stared at Yang Kai in a daze, slowly loosening her grip on his arm, smiling bitterly. You've always been like this, refusing to tell me anything. Yang Kai opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Since that's the case. Qiu Yimeng took a deep breath. Then I won't ask, take care of yourself. You've worked hard this time. I'll see you off. Yang Kai said in a low voice. Outside the house, the people from the Autumn Rain Hall were all ready to go. Qiu Yimeng and Yang Kai stared at each other, neither of them speaking, one with eyes full of expectation and longing while the other with a dull expression. The atmosphere was strange. After a long time, Qiu Yimeng's eyes gradually dimmed as she smiled bitterly, turned around, and led the people from the Autumn Rain Hall towards the central capital. Until the end, she didn't hear a single word from Yang Kai to persuade her to stay. If Yang Kai had asked her to stay, she would have ignored the Qiu family's invitation and stayed here. Yang Kai watched her leave. Both of them knew that this time, Qiu Yimeng really wouldn't be able to come back. Suddenly, a group of 3 people approached them, the leader of which was a man whose steps were steady and whose eyes flashed like lightning. Beside him were 2 peak Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters, all of whom had restrained their auras. This was the attitude that only a truly powerful person would have. Qiu Yimeng immediately stopped and stared at the approaching people in amazement, bowing respectfully, "Uncle Hua." The Hua family patriarch, Hua Zheng, stopped and smiled at Qiu Yimeng, nodding gently, "Eldest niece, are you going back to the central capital?" Qiu Yimeng nodded gently and smiled. "It's good that you're going back. Go back quickly, your father is waiting." Saying so, he led the two masters from the Hua family and strode towards Yang Kai's house. Qiu Yimeng turned around, her face filled with shock. She hadn't expected that not only would she be summoned back by the Qiu family, but even Hua Xing would be taken back. Hua Zheng appearing here was obviously to capture Hua Xing's young lord. If Hua Zheng didn't take action, no one in the Hua family could do anything to Hua Xing, so he had to come in person. Outside the house, Yang Kai looked at the newcomers indifferently and, like Qiu Yimeng, also greeted Hua Zheng. Hua Zheng nodded gently and stared at Yang Kai with a complicated look. "If you're looking for young Lord Hua, he's inside the house." Yang Kai said calmly. "Good, I'll go myself." Hua Zheng nodded and didn't say much, leading the two masters from his family into Yang Kai's house. A moment later, Yang Kai heard Hua Xing Chen's pitiful howls like a pig being slaughtered. Soon Hua Zheng came out again. The central capital wolf young Lord Hua was currently being held under the armpit of an immortal ascension boundary 9th stage master, completely unable to resist. "Old man, put me down." Hua Xing struggled and shouted, but to no avail, the old man simply ignored him. "You've offended father, you're dead. Do you believe father won't castrate you, chop you up and feed you to the dogs?" Hua Xing continued to shout. "Who do you think you are? How dare you call yourself father in front of father?" Hua Zheng glared at his son. Hua Xing suddenly shut up and smiled. "Father, I'm not talking to you. But what do you want to do?" "In front of so many people, it's so embarrassing. You shut up and come back with me to the central capital." Hua Xing was confused. "If I tell you to shut up, then shut up. Be careful or father won't slap you." Father, let's talk things out. Gentlemen use their mouths and not their fists." Fine, I'll go back to the central capital with you, but you have to let me say goodbye to young Master Kai. We've been through thick and thin together for so long. Young Master Kai and I have developed feelings for each other." Hua Zheng paused and frowned at him, then turned to Yang Kai and nodded gently. The Hua family master immediately released Hua Xing. "I'll wait for you over there." Hua Zheng said solemnly. "Understood." Hua Xing nodded firmly. After the Hua family trio left, Hua Xingchen grinned meaningfully, tilting his head as he stared at Yang Kai and muttered, "It seems something extraordinary happened." He saw Qiu Yimeng also standing there, preparing to leave, and couldn't help but feel his heart clench. Coupled with the fact that his father had personally come to arrest him, Hua Xing also realized something was wrong. "Is it inconvenient to say?" Hua Xing shrugged his shoulders. "Forget it, just pretend I didn't ask. In any case, since my father is here, I can't stay. Knowing too much won't do me any good." His expression suddenly became serious again as Hua Xing whispered, "Young Master Kai, you are destined to do great things. I don't want you to die early. This time, I don't know what happened, but it is definitely a difficult situation. You have to get through it. No matter what others think of you, I will firmly support you. If you die earlier than me, I will dig up your corpse and whip it a few hundred times a day. I, Hua Xing, have never worshipped anyone in my life, so don't waste my respect." Yang Kai's lips curled into a wicked grin. "Farewell, I won't see you out." "Farewell." Hua Xing laughed and stepped forward. The two young lords and young ladies of the two great families left Yang Kai's house at the same time, one of which was Yang Kai's right-hand man. Outside the house, the several young leaders who had heard the commotion were all shocked, completely unable to understand what had happened. The changes had come so quickly, like a violent storm, not giving anyone the slightest time to prepare. Even after Qiu Yimeng and Hua Xing's figures disappeared, no one had recovered. After a while, all of them suddenly turned to Yang Kai and began asking him questions. "Don't be so noisy." Han Shaoqi of 10,000 Flower Palace stood up. "You're all so noisy, how is Yang Kai supposed to answer?" The group of people suddenly fell silent, all of them staring at Yang Kai, expecting him to give them an answer. come in and talk. Yang Kai took a deep breath, turned around, and walked into the house. Everyone hurriedly followed. Chapter 540. In the same hall as before, Yang Kai sat at the head of the table and waited quietly. All the representatives and leaders of the various forces in the mansion continued to arrive. After a while, everyone had arrived. Han Shaoqi informed Yang Kai before finding a place to sit down. Yang Kai finally recovered from his contemplation and raised his head to look at the crowd. Sweeping his gaze across the crowd, familiar faces entered his eyes one after another. Dong family's Dong Qing Han, Purple Fern Valley's Fan Hong and Luo Xiaoman, Reflecting Moon sects Chen Shui Shu and Su Xiaoyu, Pure Heart Palaces Zwafang, Soaring Feather Pavilions Chu Jing Shan, 10,000 Flower Palaces 4 Young Girls, the 5 seniors of the Duan Mu family, Blood Battle Gangs Hu Jiao Air and Hu Mei Air, Storm Hall's Fang Ziki, Ghost King Valley's Leng Shan and Chen Yi, Tian Yuan City's Lu Feixing, 11 forces. 11 forces. With the exception of High Heaven Pavilion, all the forces had arrived. Not only that, but Medicine King's Valley's Qin Zhe, Treasure Instrument sects Wu Yen and Tao Yang had also arrived, and all the blood warriors had gathered here. This lineup was unprecedentedly luxurious and powerful. However, it was precisely because Yang Kai had summoned everyone here that everyone realized the seriousness of the situation. Even if he had summoned people before, it was impossible for him to summon people from Medicine King's Valley and Treasure Instrument sect. They couldn't help feeling that something was wrong and silently waited for Yang Kai to speak. Junior brother Yang, if you have something to say, just say it quickly, I'm waiting to perform alchemy. Qin Zhe impatiently shouted. During this time, he had been studying the alchemic way with Xia Ningchang, and the alchemy skills of the people from Medicine King's Valley had greatly improved. Qin Zhe spent almost every day in the pill room, wishing he could live here for the rest of his life and never return to Medicine King's Valley again. Compared to Medicine King's Valley, this was the holy land in the hearts of all alchemists. Yang Kai stood up and smiled. Many people have seen the situation just now and must be wondering why Qiu Yimeng and Stars was suddenly left. Everyone nodded in unison. Yang Kai continued, it's not convenient for me to tell you the specific reason, but I can tell you one thing. Everyone suddenly held their breaths. There's going to be trouble in the manor, and it's going to be a lot of trouble, Yang Kai said in a low voice, his expression turning serious. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they burst into laughter. Fatty Dong said, ever since I came to your residence, I haven't had much free time. Which incident wasn't troublesome? Zwafang also nodded. But no matter how many troubles there are, we've all worked together to get through it. Tell me, what kind of trouble is it this time? Everyone's expression was relaxed, and there was no sign of nervousness. Clearly, they did not realize the seriousness of the problem. Something that could endanger your life, or even the rise and fall of your family or sect. Yang Kai glanced at the crowd. Can you still laugh? The noise came to an abrupt end as everyone looked at Yang Kai in shock, their faces filled with disbelief. I'm not exaggerating. Maybe the situation isn't as bad as I said, but it's not that far off. That can't be, right? Chu Jingshan shook his head repeatedly. How could this be? We didn't do anything wrong, we just came here to help you participate in the inheritance war. How could our lives or even the rise and fall of our sects be threatened? It's because you're helping me. Yang Kai looked at the crowd apologetically. The problem lies with me. Han Shaoqi suddenly interjected. Is it related to your breakthrough to the Immortal Ascension boundary some time ago? Everyone couldn't help shivering, suddenly remembering the terrifying demonic aura and the scene of 8 above Immortal Ascension boundary masters acting together. Even now, they still felt a lingering fear. That can't be considered the entire reason, but at the very least, it's related. Yang Kai nodded and said, it's very likely that because of this, I will become an enemy of the central capital's 8 great families. The audience was in an uproar. Becoming an enemy of the central capital's 8 great families was something no one had ever dared to imagine. The world's great forces participated in the inheritance war in order to establish a good relationship with the 8 great families. Gathering in Yang Kai's mansion was not for this purpose, but they had never thought that one day they would have to confront the 8 great families. It was tantamount to striking a stone with an egg. Everyone's eyes trembled as they stared at Yang Kai, seemingly trying to see if he was joking. Unfortunately, they were disappointed as Yang Kai's expression was extremely serious. So Qiu Yimeng and Hu stars were taken away. Yang Kai took a deep breath. Today, I called all of you here for no other reason than to tell you that during this time, I thank all of you for your help. If fate wills it, we will meet again. Yang Kai, what do you mean? Hu Jiao suddenly stood up, her charming face filled with anger. Are you trying to drive us away? Yang Kai nodded and quickly said, yes, continuing to stay here is not good for you. You bastard! Hu Jiao ground her teeth and glared at him, laughing sarcastically. What kind of person do you think I am? At your beck and call, at your beck and call? It was you who insisted on pulling us sisters into the house, and now you want to drive us away. Why should I listen to you? Elder sister? Hu Mei looked anxious and quickly pulled on her sister's sleeve. Yang Kai is just being kind. I'm not blind. Hu Jiao muttered, glaring at Yang Kai with hatred, but I just can't get used to seeing him act so arbitrarily. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. I thought it was something serious. Qin Zhe curled his lips in disdain. So it's just this? Junior brother Yang, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. What kind of birds are the 8 great families? Do they dare hurt my Medicine King's Valley's people? Even if you lent them several guts, they wouldn't dare. Saying so, he valiantly left, not putting the 8 great families in his eyes at all. Everyone laughed involuntarily. Qin Zhe was indeed qualified to say so. Although Medicine King's Valley was only a second-class sect, because of its special characteristics, the 8 great families wouldn't act against them. Yang Kai, how serious is the situation? Han Shaoqi asked calmly. Yang Kai shook his head. I can't say for sure. If I say I will become an enemy of the 8 great families, it is very likely. For some reason, the 8 great families want me to submit, but I refuse, so there is a contradiction. But this matter is really hard to say, so it's best if you leave as soon as possible and don't get involved with me. Pausing for a moment, he continued, the same goes for the blood warriors. Tu Feng and the other elders' expressions became solemn as they exchanged glances and chuckled. Tang Yuxian said, Little Lord, I'll say something disrespectful, but don't look down on us. Since we have decided to follow you, we will live and die together, we will never shrink back. Little Lord, have you forgotten that the blood warriors are synonymous with loyalty? Even if we die, we won't leave. Ingzhou said coolly. We pledge our lives to follow Little Lord. Everyone roared in unison. Since that's the case, I won't try to dissuade you. Saying too much would be an insult to all of you. Yang Kai nodded firmly. If the blood warriors don't want to leave, naturally I won't either. Dong Qinghan smiled. You're my cousin, how could a cousin not care about his own? Yang Kai, you've shown us kindness, so when you're in trouble, we won't leave. Han Shaoqi looked towards Yang Kai with some distress. She also knew how difficult it was for Yang Kai to make such a decision. Kindness must be repaid with kindness, hatred must be avenged, my pure heart palace will not leave. Zuofang quickly said. Without even mentioning that Yang Kai had saved his life in the isolated world, some time ago, Xia Ningchang had refined a heaven-mending pill for Zuofang's brotherly Xan Yuan to repair his damaged dantian. Zuofang was extremely grateful to Yang Kai, so how could he leave at this time? After coming to this house, my strength has improved so quickly. Every day there is an endless supply of pills and artifacts. In any case, I'm reluctant to leave. Fang Ziki grinned meaningfully. Useless. Hu Jiao looked at him contemptuously. I'm telling the truth. Fang Ziki shrugged his shoulders. Yang Kai, as long as you don't drive us away, we won't leave. The cultivator in the house echoed one by one, stretching their necks and shouting. Yang Kai smiled as he swept his eyes over the crowd. He could feel that these people were speaking from the bottom of their hearts, without the slightest bit of falsehood. It was just that they were still holding on to some kind of fluke mentality and hadn't really realized the seriousness of the problem. But after saying so much, Yang Kai couldn't say anything more. He couldn't really drive out everyone here, that would be too cruel. So, he could only say, "Many thanks for your kindness, but I will say what I want to say today. I will not stop you from making your own decisions. If one day you feel that it is no longer appropriate for you to stay, you can leave at any time. I, Yang Kai, will not criticize you." "Good, enough, don't say any more, it will only hurt our feelings." Dong Qing Han mediated, and the atmosphere suddenly became harmonious. Everyone began asking Yang Kai questions. Since this matter was related to everyone's interests, Yang Kai couldn't conceal anything and simply conveyed the intentions of Yang Zhen and the others, not mentioning a single word about the myriad drug liquid. After listening, everyone's brow furrowed, only now understanding how awkward Yang Kai's situation was. Because he cultivated a demonic secret art, took in evil sect disciples, and had the same origin as the demon lord, the 8 great families were suspicious of him. The situation was indeed not optimistic. In the inheritance war, another change occurred. Originally Yang Kai's allies, the Qiu family's Qiu Yimeng was recalled to the central capital, while the Hua family's Huixing was personally captured by the Hua family patriarch and imprisoned. Before this, the Xiang family's Xiang Tianshao also left Yang Kai's house. At the same time, news of Yang Kai colluding with evil demons spread throughout War City. Gathered in his house were the remnants of the evil sect's High Heaven Pavilion and the disciples of the evil sect's Ghost King Valley, who cultivated a demonic secret art that nearly became the demon race, who broke through to the immortal ascension boundary and caused chaos in War City, contradicting the 8 above immortal ascension boundary masters, brutally killing 2 of the heirs of first-class families, and even coming from the same sect as the demon lord. All kinds of news spread, causing people to imagine what was going on. Suddenly, everyone felt that this Yang Kai really had a problem. There were even rumors that the Yang family wanted to ban Yang Kai from participating in the inheritance war and compete for the position of the next patriarch. The entire War City instantly became turbulent. The course of the inheritance war was also full of twists and turns, making it difficult to unravel. Kai Yang had been in the lead twice, but each time, for various reasons, he was unable to win in one fell swoop. It was inevitable that some people would feel pity for him, but at the same time, they would also take pleasure in his misfortune. Fortunately, he didn't win. Otherwise, if an evil demon became the patriarch of the Yang family in the future, what kind of scandal would that be? Chapter 541. Public opinion spread like a tide, and within half a day, this news had spread throughout War City and the central capital. Everyone was talking about it, and those who had high expectations for Yang Kai also inadvertently changed their attitudes. Qiu Yimeng and Stars Hua, who were forced to leave, also became the protagonists of public opinion. It was rumored that because these 2 young lords and young ladies saw the evil nature of Yang Kai, they couldn't persuade him otherwise and left Yang Kai. If not for this, it would have been impossible for them to leave Yang Kai's mansion. When the news came out, the whole city was in an uproar. Qiu Yimeng and Stars Hua's sacrifice for so long was not worth it, and Yang Kai's actions and attitude were deeply disgusted. Yang Wei Mansion. Since Yang Kai broke through to the immortal ascension boundary, Yang Wei's mansion had not taken any action. All the cultivators of the various forces were diligently cultivating, not caring about the inheritance war at all. Because even Yang Wei didn't have the confidence to win, what could these cultivators do? It was more important to improve their strength as soon as possible, and after the end of the inheritance war, they would leave War City. In the quiet mansion, not a single sound could be heard. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps broke the silence. The sound of footsteps came from afar and quickly arrived in front of Yang Wei's room. The person didn't even knock on the door and directly rushed in and shouted, "Eldest young master, eldest young master." Yang Wei, who was meditating, slowly opened his eyes and looked at Meng Shan-yi, who was both shocked and excited, his straight brow rising as he quickly said, "Shan-yi, how many times have I told you not to be so flustered when something happens? You're always like this." Saying so, he slowly shook his head, a helpless look on his face. First young lord, this time it's different. Meng Shanyi's face was flushed red, as if he had encountered a great event, but if one looked carefully, there was a trace of sadness on his brow and his expression was complicated. What happened? Yang Wei had been in retreat these days, not caring about the outside world, so he really didn't know about the public opinion in the city. Meng Shanyi said, Yang Kai is probably going to be eliminated. Yang Wei's expression became cold as he asked, Where did you hear this gossip? It's not gossip. Meng Shanyi shook his head, his expression solemn as he briefly recounted what had happened in the city that day. Hearing this, Yang Wei's expression became strange. Qiu Yimeng and Huixing's departure from Yang Kai's mansion was beyond his expectations. On top of that, the public opinion in War City was extremely fierce. Obviously, someone was adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. As for who this person was, there was no need to guess. Besides the 8 great families, no one else had the means to influence public opinion. He hadn't expected that his 9th brother, whose methods reached the heavens, would actually attract such attention from the 8 great families. Vaguely, he felt that something was not right. Even if 9th brother had the potential to become a demon lord, with the status of the 8 great families, it was impossible for them to openly make things difficult for a junior. Why was that so? What was the deeper meaning behind this? Furthermore, he had swayed the tide of public opinion first, causing OL 9th to fall into a passive situation in terms of righteousness. Then, Yang Wei seemed to have thought of something extraordinary and couldn't help but frown. First young lord, there's one more thing I need to tell you. Meng Shanyi frowned and said hesitantly. What is it? The Meng family sent a letter, asking us to cooperate with second young lord, to defeat Yang Kai. When Meng Shanyi said this, his expression was extremely bitter. A letter from the Meng family? Yang Wei raised his brow. What about my Yang family? The messenger said, the Yang family will not intervene in this matter, so we can act boldly. He had also received this letter while in retreat and hurriedly inquired about it in War City. After understanding the current situation, he had come to inform Yang Wei. Cooperate with second young lord. Yang Wei suddenly laughed. Even if all the people in our 2 mansions were gathered together, I'm afraid we still wouldn't be 9th brother's opponent, right? Is there some other arrangement? Meng Shanyi smiled bitterly. First young lord's insight is as clear as day. The messenger said that we don't need to worry, all we need to do is show up and express our stance. As for the rest, second young lord will handle it properly. Yang Wei fell silent, a sharp light flashing across his eyes. First young lord? Meng Shanyi pursed his lips. Although this time it was my Meng family who sent the message, it seems that your Yang family has also acquiesced. Yang Wei nodded gently. If not for the Yang family's acquiescence, how could the Meng family act like this? They didn't have the guts to do so. Second young lord has lost all fighting spirit since that day, and the number of people in his mansion has also shrunk significantly. He is no match for the little lord. Meng Shanyi's expression became gloomy, but listening to the messenger's tone, second young lord is now fully confident he can swallow up Yang Kai's mansion. How could he have such confidence? Reinforcements, the 8 great families' reinforcements. Yang Wei's words broke the mystery. Meng Shanyi's face was filled with horror, Yang Wei speaking out the guess in his heart, causing his expression to become bitter. First young lord. By doing this, does it mean that they have already designated second young lord as the next patriarch of the Yang family? Reinforcements had not come to the first young lord's mansion, but instead to Yang Zhao's. The Yang family obviously hoped that Yang Zhao could inherit the position of patriarch, so they had gathered reinforcements to him so that he could defeat Yang Kai and win the inheritance war. Yang Wei smiled and nodded gently. Let's not talk about 9th brother for now. According to the current situation, the Yang family really does hope so. First young lord, aren't you disheartened at all? Meng Shanyi suddenly asked. Up until now, the winner of the inheritance war was Yang Kai, but the one who had suffered the most was undoubtedly Yang Zhao. How could such a person be suitable to inherit the Yang family's patriarch's position? In terms of temperament, Yang Wei was undoubtedly more suitable. Why did reinforcements go to Yang Zhao's mansion? Yang Wei smiled and shook his head. Why should I be disheartened? In fact, I don't want to be the patriarch of the Yang family. I think ninth brother also has the same intention. How could that be? Meng Shan-yi was stunned. Yang Kai's performance in the inheritance war could be said to be extremely strong, vowing to win. Ninth brother and I both hope to reach the peak of the martial Dao. Those who pursue their own achievements generally don't want to be the patriarch. The patriarch of the Yang family, although it seems to have infinite glory, in fact, it's filled with trivial matters. After reaching that point, how could one have time to cultivate? As far as I know, the biggest reason ninth brother participated in the inheritance war was to restore the name of his sect, High Heaven Pavilion. He seems to have reached an agreement with the patriarch that as long as he wins, High Heaven Pavilion's evil sect title will be removed and its former reputation restored. Just for this? Meng Shan-yi was dumbfounded. No matter how he thought about it, there was actually someone in this world who wasn't interested in power. That's right. Yang Wei nodded. I participated in the inheritance war because of the family's rules, but also because I wanted to hone myself. The position of patriarch isn't very important to me. Meng Shan-yi remained silent. From this point of view, the family choosing to support second brother is a wise decision. Although second brother's mentality has fluctuated greatly, compared to others, there is no doubt that he is more suitable to pursue power and sit on the patriarch seat. Yang Wei smiled, not showing the slightest care. Are you disappointed that your efforts so far have not been rewarded? Yang Wei glanced over at the silent Meng Shan. Meng Shan-yi shook his head gently. Being able to hear First Young Lord's thoughts is already an honor. Since First Young Lord doesn't want to be patriarch, Shan-yi must change his mentality. After a pause, he asked, then, should we cooperate with Second Young Lord? Yang Wei smiled. Since the Meng family sent a message, the 8 great families joining forces and the Yang family acquiescing, how can I refuse? You go and show your face, that's enough. From now on, this is no longer the inheritance war. It could be said that from the moment Yang Kai broke through to the immortal ascension boundary, the inheritance war should have come to an end. Now, with the inheritance war as the stage, the 8 great families would carry out some secret schemes. I understand. Meng Shan-yi nodded slightly, turned around, and prepared to go to Yang Zhao's house to contact his people. After Meng Shan-yi left, Yang Wei's expression became solemn. After thinking about it for a long time, he still couldn't figure out why his ninth brother was targeted to such an extent. In his heart, he couldn't help feeling sad for him. At the same time, in Yang Zhao's house, batch after batch of masters quickly gathered. These people had never shown up in the inheritance war before, but today, as if they had all agreed beforehand, they had all arrived. When the cultivator of Yang Zhao's forces saw these people, all of them were stunned. They found that many of these people were Immortal Ascension Boundary 9th Stage Masters, with 7th or 8th Stage Masters abound. There were a total of 7 groups of people, each of them with a luxurious lineup. Those with good eyesight were able to see where these 7 groups of people came from. These people were all from the central capital's 8 great families. Except for the Yang family, who hadn't sent anyone, the other 7 families had all sent people. Among the 7 groups of people, a man and a woman glanced at each other and saw the helplessness and pain in each other's eyes. After a while, the man slowly walked over to the woman and nodded to her. The two of them found a secluded corner and looked at the scene of experts gathering together with a helpless expression. Of these 2 people, one was Hu Stars and the other was Chiu Yimeng. In the morning, the 2 of them had left War City and returned in the evening. In just one day, the 2 of them had been forced to change from Yang Kai's allies to Yang Zhao's. The speed at which their identities changed was extremely ironic. What conditions did your father give you? Hu Stars turned to look at Chiu Yimeng and asked softly. In the future, as a daughter, I will inherit the Chiu family. Chiu Yimeng took a deep breath. Congratulations, isn't this what you've always dreamed of? Hu Stars smiled. Yes. Chiu Yimeng brushed her hair back behind her ear, her beautiful eyes filled with confusion as she asked, what about you? Old man said that if I didn't come, he would expel me from the Hua family and never let me set foot in the Hua family again. Old man is serious, but this young master can't afford it. Hua stars smiled helplessly. It looks like we've all compromised. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.